In the quiet suburbs of South Florida, a 6-year-old boy sat in front of a glowing screen, completely absorbed in what looked like a simple family computer. While other kids chased each other outside, he was chasing lines of code. His name was Jonathan James, but in the digital world, he would later become known as Comrade. From a young age, Jonathan was fascinated by how things worked. His father, a computer programmer, noticed this obsession, but didn't realize it would soon spiral far beyond curiosity. When Jonathan's parents tried to limit his computer use, he simply broke through the restrictions. What for most children would have been an obstacle, for Jonathan was just another puzzle to solve. By the time he was a teenager, he wasn't just playing with computers, he was mastering them. He learned the programming language C, studied Unix systems, and spent hours reading source code and chatting with other enthusiasts in online forums. His world was no longer the classroom or the neighborhood park, it was the boundless, uncharted world of the internet. At 15, Jonathan had transformed into one of the youngest and most skilled hackers in the world. He didn't hack for money or fame, he hacked for the thrill, for the challenge. When he broke into a system, he often left behind polite notes for administrators, pointing out their weaknesses and explaining how to fix them. But curiosity has its consequences, and soon, Jonathan's desire to test his skills would bring him face to face with one of the most powerful institutions on Earth. In the summer of 1999, Jonathan managed to infiltrate NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama. He gained access to 13 computers and downloaded software that controlled temperature and humidity aboard the International Space Station. The program, valued at over $1.7 million, wasn't stolen for money. Jonathan said he only wanted to study how professional code was written. But to NASA, it was no innocent act. They had to shut down their systems for 3 weeks, costing them tens of thousands of dollars. Just a few months later, Jonathan took on an even bolder challenge, the Pentagon. This time, he broke into systems of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the branch responsible for analyzing nuclear and biological threats. He intercepted thousands of internal emails and retrieved login credentials from high-level employees. From his perspective, it was harmless exploration. To the US government, it was a cyber attack by a potential enemy of the state. Then, one morning in early 2000, as dawn broke over South Florida, Jonathan's mother gently woke him up and said, "Jonathan, the FBI is at the door." Moments later, federal agents raided their home. They seized his computers, CDs, and even his Star Trek books. Jonathan cooperated, admitted everything, and promised never to do it again. But 3 months later, charges were filed, and his life changed forever. Jonathan James became the youngest person in US history to be convicted of cybercrime. He was placed under 6 months of house arrest and banned from using computers outside school. He was ordered to write apology letters to NASA and the Department of Defense. Later, after a probation violation, he was sent to a juvenile detention center for 6 months. The experience left him broken. His father later said that prison changed his son. The spark was gone. Jonathan eventually gave up hacking, trying to leave that world behind. But the digital shadows he once moved through would soon return for him. While Jonathan faded into a quiet life, another hacker was rising, Albert Gonzalez. Like Jonathan, Gonzalez hacked NASA at a young age. But unlike Jonathan, he didn't stop. By the early 2000s, Gonzalez was leading one of the largest cybercrime rings in history. Using wireless sniffers, his team stole hundreds of millions of credit and debit card numbers from companies like TJ Maxx, Barnes & Noble, and OfficeMax. The total financial damage reached nearly $400 million. Ironically, Gonzalez was also an informant for the US Secret Service, helping them catch hackers while secretly running his own massive theft operation. Among his circle of associates was a hacker named Christopher Scott, who had once been friends with Jonathan James. When the authorities began uncovering the connections between Gonzalez, Scott, and an unknown figure known only as JJ, suspicion began to turn toward Jonathan. In May 2008, 8 years after his first FBI raid, the Secret Service showed up at his door. Jonathan was 24 years old now, older, quieter, still living in his childhood home with his brother after losing their mother to cancer. Agents searched the house, taking his files, and even finding an old suicide note and a gun. They suspected that JJ, the mysterious hacker linked to Gonzalez, was Jonathan James. He denied it completely. He hadn't touched hacking in years. But as he read through the subpoena papers, he saw the name Albert Gonzalez, a name he recognized from the online world he'd once been part of. The realization terrified him. Gonzalez, the same man working with the feds, could easily use his connection to shift blame onto someone else. Jonathan believed he was being set up. He feared that the government wanted to make an example out of him again, that despite his innocence, he would be sent back to prison for crimes he didn't commit. On May 18, 2008, just 2 weeks after the raid, Jonathan James took his own life. In his final letter, he wrote to his family and friends, leaving behind his passwords and a final message to the world.
"I have no faith in the justice system. Perhaps my actions today will send a stronger message. I've lost control over the situation, and this is my only way to regain it. Remember, it's not whether you win or lose. Sitting in jail for a crime I didn't commit is not me winning. I died free."
Unquote. 2 years later, Albert Gonzalez, the real mastermind behind the massive data theft, was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, one of the harshest sentences ever given for cybercrime. Christopher Scott received 7 years. And the mysterious JJ? It was later revealed that those initials didn't even stand for Jonathan James at all, but for another hacker named Stephen Watt, who went by the alias Jim Jones. Jonathan James was innocent. He was never arrested, never charged, never convicted for the crimes that haunted him. Yet the fear of being wrongly accused, the weight of his past, and the silence of those who could have defended him became too much to bear. Jonathan wasn't a villain. He was a brilliant, curious teenager who wanted to understand how the digital world worked. Instead of being guided, he was punished, made an example of. His story is a warning about how society treats its geniuses when they color outside the lines. Because sometimes, the difference between a hacker and a hero is only whether someone chooses to see potential or a threat.